Okay guys, welcome back. And in our last discussion, we spoke about opposition rule. And of course, if you are new to the channel and you are wondering what are these ones talking about, you don't even understand a thing, I would advise you start from the free 2024 mentorship playlist, as you can see right here, or in the description below. It will always be there. I think that's the only major playlist on this particular channel. So watch from the beginning so that you will follow and stay updated on the beautiful value that I've been bringing to you guys. All right, without further ado, let's talk about our next topic on the series that we started a little time ago. Now, the next thing we have to talk about, like I said in the last video, is quadrant rule. And I said the effect of quadrant rule after we have used our opposition rule to niche down the time frames that we are interested in, like 2 time frames conclusively are saying different things based on frequency. So I now said quadrant rule is what we use to balance frequency in order to actually know which of those time frames, or at every point, is it the swing die, do we register buyer, and after the flip do we register sellers, or whatever. So when 2 time frames that are conclusive based on opposition rule are saying different stories, then we will need quadrant rule to now niche down that more and be able to know that yes, this particular final time frame is what we will stick with and is what we will use to, register our final participants. So what is the work of quadrant rule? Quadrant rule is talking about our odd harmonics, that is odd frequency movement. The movement is not actually odd, the movement is even. I'm talking about 4 movements now. So let's say, for example, we know that for a complete movement of our participant, they will make 3 moves. Buyers will buy, they will sell, and they will buy. Sellers will sell, they will buy, and then they will sell to complete their cycle, right? But one thing there is that after the complete cycle, in as much we are still within the range of the same day, for example, if price now come to rate the second leg of any of those participants, we say that that is a flip, and that is the 4th move. So that 4th move is a situation whereby we have a certain participant's cycle being complete, and then a new participant now takes over. All right, now if that happens on a certain time frame, but on another time frame that is conclusively true based on our opposition rule, which we discussed, that will also be linked in the description. In case you missed that, that will also be linked in the description. So on another time frame that is also conclusive, let's say there is even no completion of cycle, that is, price did not complete any cycle there, but it was conclusive. So it is quadrant rule that will now let us know, okay, based on the relationship on these 2 wave or participants movement, what can we do to then ensure that we go with just one time frame which is true and relevant for whatever it is that we want to do. Therefore, that is what we want to do in this video, and without further ado, let's get into the chart and talk about that. Alright guys, welcome back to class. So majorly we have discussed opposition rule and different logics. However, the logics we will reference as their uses, and the 3 major logics we will focus on all through and that we use will be the opening price logic, the close candle logic, that is closing range logic, and also the close open logic. Alright, so I would like to start with the binary signals, which is daily and above, that is using opposition rule to get daily, true daily participants, weekly participants, monthly and above. Then before I go to the sessional case. So for daily participants and above, weekly, monthly, yearly, we majorly use closing range logic, majorly, most times, except when there are gaps. And anytime there are gaps at the open, especially on the time frame, where if you can spot it, huge gap, now I mean gaps that are very visible, we focus majorly on close open logics. But majorly, generally, we use close candle logic, that is the closing range logic, where the closing candle high and low is So say for example, I have, let's say I'm on 1 hour time frame, for example, and this is the last candle that closed there. So we say that our close candle logic or closing range logic is majorly that, such that when the new day opens, if I clear the high, even if I clear the low of this, if I clear the low of this, and then go like this would be close open logic. So this is not close candle logic. So close candle logic is that this is not target yet. This still has to come and raid this, so that is the low, permanently the low of the close candle and its high are the open range high and the open range low respectively. So we have price clear the high, clear the low, and then it means the target. Okay, and if it's flip, it's flip. So that's pretty much our close candle logic. And we now say that in case where there are visible gaps, so when can we have visible gaps? So let's say for example, I have this. So, all right, and this was the closed candle. This is our closed candle. So here now we have our closed candle. Then we now have a gap. All right, so let's say price gapped up like this at the open with a new candle that clearly break away from the close or the previous candle here. This is a gap. Now in that case, what we use to register our signal is the close open logic, because that is close open logic there is what can ensure that, because when there is a gap, there is discontinuity. You know, price is continuous. It is a continuous function over time. When there are gaps, there are some minor discontinuities or major discontinuities. And so close open logic is the one that can help us reconnect that fact, and it's the one that will enable us to be able to now use opposition rule. So majorly here now, I can then use close open logic on this. So by ensuring that this is already registered as price clearing the high trailing. So after that, I can then say price clear the high trailing. Therefore, we can now say if I clear the low of the open candle, that's already price clear the low, and price made the target, and so any other thing here will be a flip. So yes, close open logic is what works perfectly for the situation around this particular one. So that should be well noted. More on that will be in practical classes when we have that. So these are major logics that we use. Now, our opposition rule, therefore, is specific to the time frame as seen. It is not like an infinite slope. It is a very finite slope. Every time frame is discrete, though not unique. Why is it not unique? It is not unique because obviously, if price crosses a certain level, let's say 1.0725 on 1 minute time frame, it surely crosses on every other time frame intrinsically. So summation of effects of time frame based showing the true thing is what shows uniqueness. But each time frame is discrete, which means that it is separate to read present data that we want to read. All right, that's by the way. Now, one thing to understand therefore next is opposition rule is conclusive as seen under our defined logic that we might have picked. So which means, let's say we have something like this. Previous day and a new day. And basically, let's assume this to be on any time frame, say 1 hour time frame. Any time frame at all. The whole idea of opposition rule is to ensure that it is not about time frame. This can be 6 hour time frames, it can be any other time frame. Now, the previous day does not have to be correct. It doesn't even have to be correct in opposition rule wise. The major thing there is that the previous day cleared the low, cleared the high, under close candle logic now, met the target, maybe flip to buyer, and keeps coming, and then closes here. The major signal it closes with as red on that time frame. We don't need that, oh, is the buyer is close with, is it correct on our position rule? No, we don't need that. The major thing is, as seen on that 1 hour time frame, I saw that it cleared the low, cleared the high, it met the target, it flipped to buyer, and so it ended in buyer. So the liquidity at the closing candle on that time frame, on 1 hour time frame, for daily participants, is daily participants now we are trying to read. So for daily participant as read on 1 hour time frame, liquidity at this high is telling us buyer plus, at the low also plus. An opposition rule says that there must be absorption first, which means that liquidity rate, which means seller must rate buyer or buyer must rate seller, for us to conclusively say, okay, 1 hour time frame is something we can be conclusive about. But there is one more thing we need to talk about between higher time frame difference and lower time frame difference. Higher time frame retains imbalance. Lower time frame retains structure and liquidity. We'll get to that shortly. So basically here now, what opposition rule is saying is that for me to agree with 1 hour time frame that is showing me something real, it must first clear the low first. That is, must first signal to me that buyers are in control. That sellers are in control, sorry, D minus. That is opposite participants towards the previous day closes us. This must first show me that sellers first, right? And when it shows me that it's seller first, then I can now proceed with it. So here we have sellers first. So this time frame is conclusive that participant for this day has an energy called D minus. All right, so has an energy called D minus. So that's basically it. So here now we have D minus, and so 1 hour is conclusive. But say this new day now opens at plus first, then that is not conclusive. So let's say with this starts with D plus, then that will not be conclusive and we will drop 1 hour. So that's what opposition rule helps you do. It helps you not to even deal with that time frame at all. That is, I have nothing to do with you. All right, that is what it is. Now, another thing to note here is that the logic to be deployed does not have to be consistent for the two parties. What do I mean by that? Because continuity is still maintained and opposition rule can still effectively be used. What do I mean by that? The logic price show you is what you are to use based on what I discussed earlier. If here, for example, at the new day I want to register part, if there was gap, for example, the logic I will use will be close open. That is, if I come down and then climb up, then clear the high, and then make the target, and then let's say it's flip. So that means after I have done my D minus, D minus, D minus, then this will be a D plus for me. Now that you all understand the opposition rule for daily, in fact, generally, that is how opposition rule is used and above. One more thing to understand is now the higher and lower time frame dynamics. All right, so we have the higher and lower time frame dynamics. Lower time frame dynamics. Structurally, higher time frame retains true structure if it is conclusive as opposition rule. Lower time frame retains only imbalance, which means higher time frame retains what you can call liquidity. Lower time frames can only retain imbalance, and I will explain this shortly. So let's say, for example, I have 1 hour and I have 8-hour time frame. And say, for example, I have 2 different days, okay, which form a passive, as you can see here, passive, and the move that read it is our aggressor. 1 hour in this case, let's say, tells us that conclusively, or we might conclude our passive maybe on another time frame entirely. It might not be on 1 hour time frame, but conclusively our passive is D plus. So the one that will vary here would be the aggressor. Conclusively on 1 hour time frame, the aggressor here is D minus. That same range that we have there is now what we also have here on 8 hour. Conclusively, like I said, for the passive, I have no issue with that. Conclusively, no matter the higher time frame we would go to, let's say we still have D plus. But conclusively, aggressor here, conclusively, which means opposite day can even be somewhere around there. So don't think this is immediate days. This might be, Monday, this might be Wednesday, this might be Thursday or whatever. So the immediate day, previous day that confirms this aggressor can be Wednesday, can be somewhere found around here, can even be found around there or whatever. But conclusively, that previous day was D minus and our new day on 8 hour time frame to conclude the aggressor. So this time frame I wrote here, we use them to conclude the aggressor. Now let's even say they are not even the one we use to conclude the passive. Maybe passive is another time frame entirely, based on same logic. And conclusively, no 2 different time frames says opposite thing for the passive. So but for the aggressor, we have aggressor here is D plus conclusively on that same logic, please. So here now, most of my reference will be closing range logic. Remember where I use close open logic for daily and above is only when I have what? Only when I have gaps in order to, to balance frequency and to ensure position rule and to ensure continuity after the discontinuity, that is a repair of continuity and whatever. So D plus D plus. So the dynamics of this time frame is that, let's say 8 hours is the highest time frame to register daily participants. Now, mind you, you cannot register a participant on the time frame of that same participants. What do we mean by that? Even if it's conclusive there, I cannot register a daily participant truly on daily time frame. No, it has to be a lower time frame, maybe from half of daily below, 12 hour below. So let's say 8 hours is the highest time frame possible to register daily participants here. All right, and that gives us the highest conclusive time frame was 8 hours. Maybe when you go to 12 hours, it's no longer conclusive. And also, mind you, you don't just pick any random time frame that should we now check all time frame 50 minutes, 55 minutes. No, you want to go for time frames that align with open of the participant you are reading. That is, a new 8 hour candle opens at exactly when the day open. So not like you now go to, let's say, 11 hour. 11 hour time frame will not always open at exactly when the day open. All right, so that cannot accurately give us the cycles of daily participants or the footprint of daily participants. So basically here now, this is 8 hour time frame, and we have said, let's say this is the highest conclusive based on opposition rule, highest conclusive participants D plus, 1 hour D minus. Now, this I here is not liquidity, even though 1 hour is showing us that it is liquidity. That I is not liquidity. 1 hour is showing, if we want to go by our logic of D minus D plus, 1 hour is showing us that it is liquidity, but it is not liquidity. It is not. Because when 2 time frames, a lower time frame, this could even be 1 minute time frame, a lower time frame conclusively says this, an higher time frame, and it will always be 2 time frames comparison, never 3, because this is binary. It can only be one showing you buyer, the other showing you seller. So it's all about highest conclusive time frame against any low relative time frame. All right, any lower relative time frame, but highest conclusive time frame. Very important. Emphasis on highest. Highest conclusive time frame is what we use to conclude our true signal. Highest conclusive time frame. So basically, 8 hour holds our liquidity. All right, so let me draw that again. We have our 1 hour. We have our 8 hour. And we have this. We have D plus, and we said this gives us D minus. Okay. While we now have this, D plus, and we are interested in the aggressor, we say aggressor conclusively on 1 hour says G minus, conclusively on the 8 hour time frame says D plus. So this is not liquidity because we go for what the highest time frame possible says, which is that this is buyer. And we already conclude that the passive conclusively on all major time frame is D plus. But however, so this retains either this highest liquidity or not. But however, what retains imbalance is the lower time frame. Okay, the lower time frame shows D minus seller. Right. So let's say, for example, when price is now coming back, price now engineer a daily liquidity DL. Okay. So price engineers a daily liquidity DL. That same area can then sponsor price because this is supply imbalance. All right, when we get to imbalance, we'll get to understand that better. But this is what is happening here. We need to understand that from signal perspective right now. So this is seller taking control from buyer. So it can sponsor itself. So you could have been wondering, if you had just seen the opposition rule and everything confirming from 1 hour and you are expecting that even maybe this high will be rated. No. Or maybe you even try to buy and you were thinking that such high will be rated. I'm telling you now that that will not be rated because it is not liquidity. So this right here makes it not to be liquidity, but however, the imbalance structure is retained. Same thing if it is, say, in the same day. All right, so let's say it is same day something, let's say, price clear the high, clear the low, made the target, flip to seller conclusively. Maybe previous day is D minus, and this now clear the high, clear the low, made the target, flip to seller, clear the high, let me put it here. So clear the high, clear the low, made the target, flip to seller. So this right here is imbalance for sellers. All right, anytime we have daily liquidity, we relatively will have that sponsoring it. But if there's a conclusively that is D minus now, all right, if there's a conclusively, the higher time frame, the highest time frame that is conclusive tells us that we have D plus as the aggressor here. It means this OI will be liquidity if this is also conclusively D minus. This OI will be liquidity and therefore this cannot sponsor anything. That high will be what? It will be rated. All right. So more example on that on liquidity, but this is the basis so that when we get to liquidity or when we get to imbalances, you will not be confused and you will get to understand exactly what we are doing. All right. So that is liquidity, that is imbalance. Okay. Now to practically now round off what we have on opposition rule, majorly we have been able to deal with every major thing as discussed. When it comes to opposition rule, we have highlighted the fact that our closing range logic most times for daily and above and whatnot. So the next one we want to talk about is now for everything we have discussed here apply as well for sessional, but we want to discuss sessional because the logic we use for that could vary. So for sessional, major thing we focus on is usually OPL, open price logic. So there are certain cases where we have gap as well. If we have gap as well, we can use close open logic. All right. But OPL majorly and the same rule applies. You don't need previous session to complete cycle and all. The same rule of highest time frame that is conclusive retains liquidity structure. Lower time frame that is conclusive based on OPL retains imbalance what? Imbalance structure. So let's say, for example, I have this thing right here. So let's say I have this. All right, I have this. Now, let's say this is Frankfurt S plus, and London open here S minus, New York open here S plus, conclusively as seen on this time frame. So let's say New York now is conclusive because London that was active as dominant before is now minus, and New York open first as plus. So that is accurate. Now let's not say here we have close, that is Frankfurt close, and it's signal to us that we now have two sessions. So whatever first impulse we see there as well, based on open price logic is what we are using here now. So let's say on this time frame, that concluded as C minus first, and it's now flipped to C plus. It's now flipped to C plus. So when it's flipped to C plus, that is that on this time frame. Now, when we now go to the highest time frame possible, now to check for closing range, for example, I cannot use 1 hour. I have to use time frame that are lower, 30 minutes and lower, to conclude the highest time frame conclusive. Why? Because the whole cycle of sessional closing range itself, the whole cycle itself is 1 hour. Same thing with Frankfurt. Frankfurt's registration only occur within 1 hour. The moment London opens, London already overlapping. Same thing with Sydney. Sydney only occurs, and you want to ask, what do we really signate to? You really signate to the closing range of New York. Let's say New York closes by 9 p.m. So that's 1 hour movement. What happened from that 9 p.m.? The 1 hour movement before market opens. So the 10 p.m. is what your negate Sydney has. We'll say that in our examples in live practical classes as it may. Everything cannot be put in here. This is just to ensure with our video, but mentorship has to still be retained, because some of you even always share people's video anyhow to other people and whatnot. So it's just basics and live applications and much more practical examples we'll be saying in classes. So let's say what we have here. So based on this now, this you could have said is liquidity. But let's say all of this was checked on, like, let's say 5 minutes time frame. And now when we go to something like 30 minutes time frame, let's say 30 minutes is also conclusive. For the closing range, let's say nothing changes about the New York S plus, nothing changes about it. But for the closing range now, let's say conclusively on 30 minutes, the closing range, this is a single closing range. I'm not talking about two different closing range now. I said this open as C minus flip to plus. All right, so let's say 3 p.m. Frankfurt closing range. So basically here, we have on 30 minutes time frame, conclusively straight up. Our closing range, let's say, is C plus on 30 minutes time frame, C plus, and it was C plus as at the aggressor. So that's the same thing. Maybe price just cleared the high, cleared the low, made the target under opening price logic, OPL. Meaning that on the highest conclusive time frame, this low is not liquidity. So it means this low is not liquidity. That's it. So it is not liquidity on higher time frame, so it is not liquidity. But this retains imbalance structure, which means if price should come back and we have a sessional liquidity SL, all right, that particular guy qualifies to promote it as imbalance, and it is not liquidity. So same application, but different what? Different logic. Sessional most times, OP what? Open price logic. And why does open price logic work effectively? For those that care to know, for sessional, that's practically because sessions overlap. All right. And there is more uniqueness in the what? In the open price, because the open price is as active as when live participants are coming in. All right, when the New York Stock Exchange exactly opens, when this one opens and all that. So that's that open price that they agree to open with becomes much more important and much more effective. All right, so like highly accurate. And for closing range too, highly accurate, except for when you have gaps. All right, and then you want to understand that. So that's pretty much everything about opposition rule. And I've compressed quadrant rule here, but I don't need to start explaining all the back end of quadrant rule. Simply put, the quadrant rule is simply the relationship of the higher time frame and the lower time frame, which means the higher CS time frame, concrete time frame has to be checked. And in cases where you want to mark imbalances, you want to mark liquidity, you don't even need to go to, once you see your highest time frame possible and you see it conclusively, you don't even need to check a lower time frame flip or whatever again at all. But if you need imbalances, you want to pick imbalance zones that will sponsor areas, then you will need to compare and contrast with lower time frame in order to pick imbalance. Because why is that a place where you see, let's say you see D plus, D minus here, and price has violated that range or something, all right? And price has violated that range or something, and now a day liquidity was formed. You go stick with the higher time frame top. The higher time frame will purely be showing you, majorly, that's what the higher time frame will be showing you. The higher time frame will majorly be showing you that this was supply. But meanwhile, on a lower time frame, say the higher time frame is 8 hours, lower time frame is 1 hour. The lower time frame, this aggressor might actually be conclusively D minus that flipped to D plus and is still D plus as I hear. So that area where it's flipped from D minus to D plus shows imbalance, a daily imbalance, and is factually real and true. So you would have missed such and be wondering weird, and you'll be wondering what price used. All right. So to avoid that, anytime you want to mark imbalance, always remember your lower time frame and ensure that is right written in the trading plan. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Okay guys, now you have seen quadrant rule, you have seen how beautiful it is. Now I am so sure that you are now confident about your quadrant rule, you are now confident about picking signals, about concluding buyers and sellers, and that will be able to launch you into more greatness of being able to, pick the true liquidity, which we'll discuss in coming videos, pick the right zones. We'll now understand every other thing because everything has links to getting accurate signals have been discussed. So yes, that is it for quadrant rule, and that's it for this video guys. I will see you guys on the profitable side.